The federal government is attempting to overturn a BC Supreme Court decision made earlier this year that finds isolating inmates for an indefinite amount of time unconstitutional. This comes as the government faces a $65 million lawsuit from an immigration detainee who alleges he was denied proper food, clothing, and medical care during his more than 760 days spent in solitary confinement. Former MP Lynn McDonald is campaigning to abolish solitary confinement in Canada, and she joins us now. Thank you so much for being here.
Glad to be with you.
So one out of every 4 prisoners in Canada has spent some time in solitary confinement. It seems like a pretty important tool in the toolkit of the prison system. Why do you want to abolish it completely?
Well, it's a barbaric practice. We got rid of hanging some years ago. We got rid of flogging. Apparently, there were quite a few different whips that could be chosen, you know. And we got rid of the bread and water diet. It's got to be somewhat healthy. It may not be great, but we still have, and that is up to wardens to issue. This is not a court order. This is a warden's decision to put people in a small cell and keep them there for a very long time. People, Indigenous people are overrepresented in solitary. They're also overrepresented in the prison system, period, and the mentally ill, and people get worse. Now, most prisoners are going to get out. And why should they get out worse than they came in? We want people not to deteriorate.
Well, we're going to talk about that in a moment, but let's talk about Ralph Goodale's position, because so on one side we've got the status quo. On the other side, we've got complete abolition, which you endorse, and then you've got Public Safety Minister Ralph Goodale's tabled legislation that he wants to introduce a new system called structured intervention units, which means inmates would leave their cells for 4 hours a day, have access to mental health programs. What do you think of that proposal? Is that a happy middle ground?
It's a little bit difficult to judge it because we haven't seen it in action and we don't know how it would actually work. Getting out of your cell for 4 hours a day is obviously better than getting out for 20 minutes or not at all, or an hour, etc. And the so-called access to programs, this tends not to happen in the solitary system. Tends to be something that's promised that doesn't actually happen. And the thing is with what his proposal in this legislation is that there's no end to it. It could go on indefinitely. And if it's being harmful, to have no end to it is a very bad thing. We do not, our group, the Campaign for the Abolition of Solitary Confinement, just doesn't have confidence that the experts can tell who's going to crack up, break down, commit suicide. Experts have not been able to tell before, and we have no reason to believe we can expect that the suicides will continue. I think that legislation might reduce it, but we're not even sure about that.
Well, let's go back to a point that you made before, that prisoners who go into prison eventually come out and they reintegrate into society. And you said that the public is at a greater risk from those who have spent time in solitary confinement. What do you mean by that?
Well, studies have shown that people who are released from solitary, as it were, and I'm referring to also the U.S. system, not just Canada, that they're more likely to reoffend, and we certainly don't want that. But most prisoners will get out. I mean, even a life sentence, most prisoners will get out. Not all, but most will get out. And we just think, well, it's a barbaric system. It's just, I mean, people go to prison as a punishment. And this is an extra punishment, but it's not just a punishment, it's one that drives people around the bend.
Lynn, thank you so much for being here, sharing this point of view with us, and we wish you the best of luck.
Thank you.